This segment is all about selling your business in today's economy. Welcome to the program. I'm Mark Imperial, and this segment's brought to you by booksgrowbusiness.com. It's the place where busy professionals get published to lead their fields, educate consumers, and to leave a legacy. Joining me on this segment is Michael Vann. He's the president of Vann Group. Michael, welcome to the show.
Hi, Mark. Thanks for having me today.
Tell us a little bit about your work and specifically, who are the types of clients that you help?
So we work typically with the lower middle market companies, small, mid-size companies, typically $500,000 EBITDA up to probably 5 or 6 million is where most of our companies land. A lot of manufacturers, distribution, professional, technical services, industrial services, that space. So we're a generalist.
Right on. And with those business owners that you work with, even though they're great at growing their business, how great are they at selling their business? Do they have experience with it or even know where to start?
So the vast majority of business owners have never sold a business before. So it's the first time they're doing anything. And like anything else, for the first time you're doing, you really don't know what to do or how to go about it. So it requires a lot of hand-holding, to help guide them through this process, because it's a pretty emotional and technical process.
Gotcha. Do they have any preconceived notions about selling a business or what they think it's about? Are there any myths or misconceptions out there about it?
There's usually a lot of misconceptions about, who those buyers are, about things like the valuation. Everyone thinks it's usually worth more than it actually is. There's misconceptions about what seller financing is and the requirements of that. So there are a lot of things that business owners read from a lot of places, but a lot of it is just conversations they have with other people. So it may or may not be the most informed areas of their lives.
Tell us a little bit about like some of the common mistakes that you see business owners make when they go to sell their businesses that might sabotage their success. What are some common mistakes?
So we kind of put them into a couple different categories. One of them is certainly ego. You think about it, selling a business is emotional. This is your baby. You've probably built this company. You've owned it for a long time. You spend more time at work than you probably do at home. For a lot of entrepreneurs who own companies, so there's a lot of ego tied up into that business. So, we get kind of wrapped up into what that is and thinking it's about us and not the business. So ego plays a key role in that. Greed is another factor. Again, we're selling a business and we've got a high sense of what the value is on it. And then I think another one is knowledge. Going into a situation like selling a business and not knowing things is okay, but not knowing what you don't know and can really cause a lot of problems. So when we talk to our business owners, we try to educate them as much as possible about what's going to happen during this process. What's unusual if we see something unusual with a buyer, or what's typical, and try to calm them down.
So people are familiar with real estate and selling a home, and I'd imagine that businesses are quite a different animal to sell. Can you tell us a little bit about those differences? And like, for example, I know that pretty much every home will sell, but how about a business?
So I think the stat I've seen is only 1 in 5 businesses actually sell. And the way you can kind of compare it to real estate, when you go into real estate, you're going to buy a house. There's lots of comps. There's property evaluations, assessments. We know it's the number of square feet, number of bathroom. It's pretty easy to kind of come up with a value range that you think it's going to happen with and get appraised. With a business, there's a gazillion factors that come into play in determining that value. And people are emotional about what the value of that business is. So buyers are emotional about it from, I want as much as possible. And sellers, the other way around, buyers, want to pay as little as possible. They, look at the business in an entirely different light. It's a risk. So they're far more attentive to what could go wrong with the business, whereas a buyer is looking at it as, this is great. What flaws are you seeing? So when we go into a house, it's kind of easy to get an inspection and say, yeah, the roof's needs to be replaced or anything else. With a business, you don't have that black and whiteness to it.
And to use that real estate analogy again, everybody sells their home in the spring because there's like a spring market. Is there such a thing as a good time or good season to sell a business, or when is the best time to sell a business?
So the good time to sell a business is when the market conditions are right for it. And so, yeah, in a house, great. The spring is a great time to sell it when everyone's looking. In the market, it's more about what's going on in the broader trends. There are a lot of buyers out there. What's the capital markets look like? How are you performing against it? So we always say the best time to sell a business is when it's at its maximum peak value in the market.
Great insight. Michael, what inspired you to get into the field and help business owners sell their businesses? How did you get started?
Probably like a lot of the people who work in this space, by accident. I started working on a consulting basis with clients, and when you're doing consulting work, they always ask, well, can you do this? Can you do that? And so, you start to say, well, yeah, I can help you sell the business. We'll figure it out. You get involved with it that way. And, 20 years later, you've built a practice around it. So it wasn't a well planned out idea for me. It just was something I started to fall into.
Right on. Before I ask you my last question, in
Sure.
regards to selling a business in today's economy, is there anything that I didn't think to ask you that you feel is really important to share with business owners considering selling today?
No, nothing that I can really think, because there's so much when you get into this topic. There's probably 1,000 questions that a business owner is going to have, so whether it's about value, what the market conditions are, or so many of them are individually specific, like, well, what's a buyer going to expect from me on a transaction? What's it worth? What's going to happen to my people? Those are all the little things that start to pop up, and you can go down really deep rabbit holes with each one of those individual questions.
Right on. So for business owners that would love to speak with you and perhaps get your help, and maybe they do have some questions, more questions for you, how can they find you, connect with you, and learn more?
Sure. So you can go to our website, which is Vann, VANN group.com, or you can email me at letsgo@van-group.com.
This has been terrific. I really appreciate you taking the time to share with my audience today, and I wish you continued success for you and for all of your clients.
Thank you very much for having me, Mark.
That was Michael Vann, president of Vann Group. And this segment's been brought to you by booksgrowbusiness.com. It's the place where busy professionals publish to lead their fields, educate consumers, and to leave a legacy. That's all for now. I'm Mark Imperial, and thanks for joining me.